Hello, guys. Good to see you. I'm seeing a lot of old friends and classmates. mm. Shri, this is an international conference, really.
Great.
So we have people from around the world. Austin, where are you?
I'm in London, Peterborough.
Austin is in the UK. Shri is calling in from West Coast, somewhere in California.
San Diego.
And we have the rest. So like we said, we're going to mute our phones. Let's try to mute.
Okay, Dr. Uvoh, I just muted everybody, so you can unmute your mic to talk.
Okay, cool. Anyway, guys, welcome to the day 2 of the Delta DSC Technical High School All Students Association AGM. For years, we've been having this meeting, and because of the current pandemic, we've decided we're not going to be stopped. We are men of steel, and we cannot be stopped. And we continue to go on, and we want to keep doing this, reaching out to ourselves and encourage each other to be the best that we can be. This is a huge opportunity for us to come together, seeing old faces, and we want to. And this year's theme is all about we are who we are because of others. It's a popular a South African saying. Today we do have the privilege of having a friend and a wonderful ambassador indeed. When I met Shri for the first time, I was like, okay, who's this guy? It sounded. I was actually looking at this TED talk, and I saw his name. I'm like, wow, a dentist. And incidentally, I'm trying to be like him. Shri he earned his degrees in a school where I'm at right now. I'm at the University of Michigan, and he was there. So when I was asking someone, can you link me up with old students of this school? And somebody said, you need to know Shri, and that's how I got to meet him. He had his dental degree from the University of Michigan. He has a PhD from the University of Nebraska and an MBA from MIT Sloan School of Management. He has held numerous academic appointments, including being former professor and chair of dental specialties at Mayo Clinic. He founded a private practice, Koka Dental, in San Diego, California, and currently holds faculty appointments at Loma Linda University and UCLA. He is president of the International College of Prosthodontists, president of the Academy of Prosthodontics, and the founder of the Future Leaders Workshop Series. I assume Dr. Shri is a very busy man. I wonder how he has time to do what he does. He's currently the president of the MIT Sloan Club of San Diego and chair-elect of the MIT Sloan School of Management. Today, he'll be speaking on the power of cooperation. Thank you so much, Dr. Shri, for meeting with us today, and the floor is yours.
Uvoh, thanks very much for the chance. And to Mr. Chinnu as well, thank you very much for thinking that I might be able to contribute. I heard Austin say that he's in the UK. Austin, that's where I was born and raised, just outside London in Essex. So, but I've lived in the States now for 35 years. So definitely call America home for now. So I will reassure you that even though I'm a dentist and Uvoh's a dentist, there are no pictures of teeth and there's no blood or anything in this presentation, okay? This is very much a philosophical journey. You know, I was born in England, yes, but my parents are from India originally. My dad's a dentist. I grew up in sort of white, suburban, middle-class London, a very comfortable life. Not too many other Indians or non-white people around in that neighborhood or in the school I went to. So I always say I grew up as a grain of pepper in a salt shaker, really. And it's kind of what I was used to. I think as you get older, you realize that if you live that kind of life, you're one of the lucky ones. I was born to the right people in the right place at the right time. And one can embrace that good fortune and see it as nothing more than good fortune, or one can see it, I think, as a calling to give back and take one's good fortune and try and help others. So you'll see that theme come forward today. The power of collaboration. I remember at MIT hearing this on one of the first days of school, which was, you know, you can accomplish so much as an individual, but only so much. Most fundamental change comes through organizations or collections of people. And that requires collaboration. And there's certain places that are better at this than others. And I'm really lucky. I mean, I've been to literally two best-in-class, best-in-world places, Mayo Clinic and MIT. And these places are different. I mean, I teach at UCLA now, and UCLA will tell you, oh, we're the #6 hospital in the country in the rankings, and they are. But the gap between 6 and 1 is huge. And it's almost all attitudinal and culture-driven. And we're going to talk about how places like Mayo and MIT do extraordinary things by focusing on certain things. So let's do this as a slideshow now, and we'll get going. So this is a quote by Mark Twain, which I love. I think it's quite profound. The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and that day when you find out why. And I will say, I don't think I had my second day until I was 43. And I was sitting in a classroom at MIT, and we had an anthropology professor. They have an anthropology professor in the business school teaching us social sciences and how to lead people. And he had us do this exercise, and it was called the career anchor exercise. And there's a bunch of these things that are out there, and you can, you know, they all have their pros and cons. And in this one, you answer a series of questions, and you calculate a score. And based upon your scores, your anchor is in one of 8 different categories. And these categories might be lifestyle. When I say anchor, anchor here in this exercise is defined by the one thing that you would not give up for the other things. It's your anchor. Some people love entrepreneurship. Some people love a challenge. Some people really love being good at something technically. Some people like managing. Some people like autonomy, and so these were some of the other categories. But one of the categories was service to others. And the prof walked his way around the tables. He didn't make people yell them out for privacy reasons, who they were, what category they were in. But I remember he came to my table and he looked at mine and he said, I've been doing this 30 years. I have never seen a score that high in service before. And that struck me. That struck me as, gee, I've spent most of my life thinking, well, I need to live in this kind of house or drive that kind of car or make this certain amount of money or have a degree that has a certain title. I mean, these are the things, these are the ways, not so much I was raised, but necessarily, but what society around you tells you are the ways that you judge yourself and they're judging you. And I've never really been comfortable with that. And so suddenly this comes along. This was sort of my second day where I felt like, okay, this is the point of liberation. This is why give up all that other crap and just focus on what you really like to do. But you can only do that through collaborating with others. So I thought this was a big deal, right? For me, it was a profound moment. A couple of years ago, when I was back at my 5-year reunion, one of my classmates, Zaid, said, "Hey, do you remember that day when the prof told you that you had the highest score on service he'd ever seen?" And I said, "Yeah, I remember that day, but why do you remember that day?" And he says, "Well, I was sitting next to you. The whole table just went incredibly quiet. It was really a powerful moment. I remember it clear as day." So it was like, wow, it didn't just affect you, it affected me, it just affected other people too. This is a quote from a US middle distance runner, very well-known runner in the 70s, who actually died. He was hit by a car when he was out training, running on the streets. And he said, "To give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift." And I think there's a lot of truth to this too. Again, if we're on this call, the odds are there's a group of us on this call that have overcome challenges. It hasn't been easy. The journey has been tough, been lots of obstacles, emotional, physical, spiritual, whatever they are, that we could argue have made our lives more challenging. And we've had to sacrifice to get to where we are. But yet, if you're on this call, you're doing pretty well. I mean, you've got access to the internet right away. That puts you ahead of the game in terms of many people on the planet. You've got roof over your head, clothes on your body, food in your tummy, right? So we've got this gift. And so how do we give back with it? So I'm going to argue that life is fundamentally a collection of decisions. And some of these decisions are really innocuous. It's like in the picture that Joshua has here that I can see, was he going to wear a purple sweater or was he going to wear a blue sweater, right? So for his picture. So some of these decisions are just not that important in the sense that if you choose one or the other, there's no significant impact one way or the other. Do I wear blue socks? Do I eat chicken tonight or do I eat vegetarian? Whatever it is, these things don't matter. But then there's a bunch of decisions that really matter. If you get them wrong, the tolerance for making a mistake is incredibly high. If you choose the wrong career, if you marry the wrong person, if you choose not to marry the right person, for example, these are decisions that can make or break your life in many ways. And everyone uses the word strategy. This is Michael Porter. He's a business school prof at Harvard. Very well known. He's written a bunch of books. And this is a paper that struck me because in many ways, we use this word strategy all the time. And we use it as a word. We use it strategic thinking, strategic plan, whatever it is. We use the word strategy. But if I ask you to define it and say, well, actually, what is strategy? What would you say it is? We sort of have this nebulous idea of what we think it is. And Porter basically says it's the actions and behaviors that lead to you trying to be different in a way that matters and in a way that lasts. So let's say I want to be different. Let's say I'm driving home from my dental practice and on the way home, I'll pass 10 different other offices. And if I see one of them with all these people lined up outside the door waiting to get in, the first thing I'm going to do is find out, what's this place doing that's so good that everyone wants to go there? And then I'm going to copy it. So to be different in the short run is actually not that hard, but the best organizations are the ones that are able to be different in a way that matters, that last. It's hard for other people to copy or emulate. And so think about that as strategy. So then when you think about your own life and your own ability to make a difference, how do you want to make that difference in a way that really matters and in a way that lasts? It really has some impact beyond, for me, even giving this presentation, will this have impact beyond me giving the presentation? I don't know, but a lot of times when I give these kinds of presentations, somebody emails me afterwards and it starts a conversation or it starts a relationship that sometimes leads to something more than the presentation. So again, it's about where might you have impact? So how do you make these decisions then? How do you tie the last two slides together, which is, how do I make the decisions that will allow me to be different in a way that matters and in a way that lasts, that's hard for other people to copy, but still makes a difference? And, you could argue that's for me, my practice, my department, my team, whatever it is. And if you're truly invested in what you do on a daily basis with people around you, then I think these things are the same. You and your team are intertwined. So how you can do that? Well, you're going to manage what I call is your sweet spot. And when you're born, on the left-hand side of this x-axis, age, when you're born, you have very little wisdom, because wisdom, I think, comes from two things. It comes from new experiences and what you learned from those new experiences as you reflected on them. I think it was Thomas Edison who said, I learned far more from the experiments that didn't work than from the ones that did, you know, and I think there's a lot of truth there. So if you just go through life having new experiences, but you don't learn from them, you'll become more experienced, but you won't actually become wiser. So the game here is, how do you become wiser? On the other hand, when you're born, you've got tons of energy. Some of you on this call are younger than me, and you've probably got more energy than I do. And at some point in your life, you know, you'll notice that you have a little bit less energy than you used to, or you have to work a bit harder to keep that same level of energy up. And I'm going to argue that where these lines cross, this is your sweet spot. And what's the point of that? Well, the point of that is it's that time in your life when you have sufficient energy to use the wisdom you have, but you also have sufficient wisdom to use the energy that you have. And organizations can have this too. So we tend to pick people to be on our teams. We tend to pick people with whom we collaborate based on, well, they have this technical skill. You know, so let's take a dental practice, for example. Well, you know, I'm going to pick this person because they've been a dental assistant for 10 years and they have lots of experience. And they know how to do X, which none of the other assistants in the practice know how to do. And that's something I want to add to the practice. I would argue that that's the wrong way of doing it. I heard a quote the other day, which I thought was good. This person, Barbara McCracken, said, always choose attitude over experience, always. So one of our employees told me last week that he was leaving our practice. And, you know, as we look for how to replace him, the first question is always, how do we find someone that has our values? We don't care if they have the experience. We can teach them the experience. What we cannot teach them is the values. So organizations that hire based upon sweet spots, I think, are better than organizations that just hire based on technical skills. And in reality, your wisdom curve is not smooth, the way I showed it before in the blue line. It has lots of kinks in it. And the kinks, the biggest kinks, come when you make the biggest changes in your life, because that's the biggest set of new experiences, right? So when you have those new experiences and you learn from them, that's when you're going to get the biggest jumps in your wisdom curve. And for me, you know, growing up, I had a pretty homogeneous first 19 years of my life. And then suddenly I moved to America, big jump, you know, become a dentist, big jump, get married, big jump. First job, change cities, change states. So all these things are the places where I felt like, looking back, I grew the most. Some people, that freaks them out, you know, that sort of change in their life, or this concept of settling down. I don't know why, but I've never been into settling down. And it's hard to make a difference when you're settling down, or if you take that mentality. So mine's always been about looking for opportunities to make a difference. Now, those opportunities may not come along for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years, and I'm very happy doing what I'm doing as long as I'm making a difference. But when something new comes along, it's, wonder what this is. Let's go find out. The sweet spot's important because it is the zone in your life when you will make the best decisions because you have the wisdom, in a huge number because you still have the energy. When you're on the left side of the sweet spot, as you look at this slide, yeah, you've got tons of energy. You can make lots of decisions, but they're not going to be very good ones because you don't have much wisdom yet. On the right-hand side of the sweet spot, you're going to make really good decisions because you're quite wise, but you're not making very many of them because, again, you're sort of petering out. So the challenge is, how do I get into my sweet spot as soon as possible? How do I become wiser sooner? How do I keep getting wiser longer? Basically, how do I change the shape of my wisdom curve? And why is that important? Well, it's important because let's say this is where your sweet spot is, and you can stretch it. You can take it from that little orange oval, and you can make it this much larger blue oval. So the center of your sweet spot, there might be a 3 to 5 year difference in there. But you might have entered your sweet spot 8 to 10 years ahead of time. And I'm just picking numbers here to make my point. But what I'm really trying to get at is that the sooner you enter your sweet spot, the quicker you will make good decisions and the quicker you will not make bad decisions. And doing my MBA, for example, people say, well, what'd you get out of doing the MBA? And I said, well, I made a lot of friends, I learned a lot of stuff. But at the same time, life isn't always about making an A+ decision. Life sometimes is about not making an F decision. And, if you take a baseball as an example, it's not always about hitting a home run. Sometimes the goal is actually just not to strike out. And, you can do quite well if you don't strike out. And so the whole premise of the sweet spot, I call it the sweet spot, and I've developed these sets of slides. But the whole premise of it is that phrase that you might have heard, which is, I wish I knew then what I know now. So how many of you would live a different life if you knew 8 years ago what you know today? Right? So I would argue that most of us would, right? We would have made different decisions. And again, some of them would have been better decisions and some of them would have been less bad decisions. So then, what are the reflections as they relate specifically to collaboration and the power of it that have stretched my sweet spot? And if I can share some of these with you, then hopefully it will stretch yours too.
Oh, hold on, Dr. Sri.
Yeah.
Sri, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. I want to do a little technical switch here on the back end, but I just want to somebody ask a question. So if you could answer that question while we do a little. So the question here is he said, how can I set myself on a path to realizing my second day?
Great question. So I don't think you can, well, I think you have to have a certain number of experiences to know what resonates with you and to know what really matters to you. You have to know yourself a little bit. And so I don't know that it's dead easy to have it when, let's say you're in your teens or in your 20s, because you may not have had enough life experiences yet to know that what just happened to you was that light bulb, was that second day. So again, like I said, I didn't have mine until I was 43, right? And I'm not sure it has to be 43 either. Could be a lot sooner. And then there is part of me that says, oh, geez, I wish it hadn't been when I was 43. I wish it had been sooner so I would have more time to do something about it. But that's what it took. And I talk a little bit later, if we get to that far, about the concept of permission. And I think that's a really important one because a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission, or society doesn't give us permission to really go where we feel like we want to go because it's not cool or not profitable or not fancy or whatever, whatever it is. And so I think some of it is doing lots of things to find out where are the people or where you're happiest, you find most meaningful doing. And then it's actually being open to that and acknowledging that that's really what drives you. And then the third part is doing something about it. So you can have the first two, but then if you don't do anything about it, you'll probably be frustrated that this isn't who you're doing. You're doing things that aren't really who you are or who you want to be. Does that help?
Okay, I believe so. If you answer the question, let me know. I do have Atariata Evime. Your hand is up. Do you have a question? Evime, you can unmute yourself. Have a question. Atariata, do you have a question? Your hand is up. Anyway, I don't think you have. All right. So 1 minute. Joshua, are you set? Sri, there are folks on Facebook that are waiting to see the presentation as well. So he's trying to share your screen. So just 1 minute here.
Of course, not a problem. Hey, Uvoh, remind me, how long is this supposed to be?
I think like 30 minutes, then, questions.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Ian has said that the question was answered. So we'll see. Are you still able to advance your slides?
Yep. Yeah, I'm good that way.
Oh, okay, go ahead then.
All right. So thank you. This paper I didn't read till about 7-8 months ago. Somebody sent it to me. And this has also actually changed the way I look at the world. You'd think, okay, kid, you're 54 years old, 53 when I read this. How much more can you fundamentally change? But this one did. This one really actually made me stop and think about, maybe I've been looking at this the wrong way. This lady wrote a paper that said she asked herself, am I a helper, a fixer, or a servant? And why this is important to me was because I'm a dentist, I'm in healthcare. Do you know how many times I have said to myself and to others, well, I went into dentistry because I wanted to help people. I've sat on the admissions committee at University of Nebraska where we have interviewed applicants who want to go into dentistry. And we asked them, why do you want to become a dentist? And 19 out of 20 of them are going to say, because I want to help people. And it sounds good, right? But here's the problem that this lady at least says comes with that philosophy. She thinks that helping, fixing, and serving represent 3 different ways that you can see life. So she argues in this paper, and I think compellingly, she argues that when you say that you're helping someone else, you have to see them as weak to see yourself as helping them because they need your help. When you fix someone, you're actually seeing them as broken. And so what happens here is you create this hierarchy where you're better than them. And her argument is that it's only when you serve that you can actually see life and you can see them as whole and not as someone that needs to be helped or fixed. So she believes that that hierarchy creates a distance. Again, you're above them, they're below you, they need your help, they need you to fix something. And it's only a true sense of service when that is happening where there's no distance. You're on the same level, there is no hierarchy. And that means when you're on the same level, the nature of your connection is more profound. And you hear things like Gandhi say, find yourself in the service of others. Gandhi didn't say find yourself in helping others or fixing problems. He said serve. And I think, again, it sort of ties back into what I said to you earlier about the career anchor exercise. So this lady argues that when you fix someone or you help someone, it's actually about ego. And I've heard this before, that when you help someone, are you really trying to help them, or are you doing it to make yourself feel better that you help somebody, right? And I think this sort of gets at that. Fixing and helping may be the work of one's ego, but service is the work of the soul. And I think this one really made me stop and think again about why did I become a dentist? In most dental practices in the US or medical practices, social media is an important way of people finding out about you. And that's often through patient reviews, right? And we have a series of reviews that patients are kind enough to leave for our practice. And the one, in our practice, we see people from all walks of life. That's important to us. Even though we're a specialty practice and we do some fancy stuff, for people who are quite well off, we take care of everybody. We're the only, there's an insurance plan here that's a government plan that almost no dentists will see those patients. And certainly I'm the only one within a radius of about 60 miles, maybe even more, that sees patients with that kind of insurance to provide specialty care. And it's just something my wife and I believe that is what we want to do, right? And so you'll get these comments. And the comment that means the most to me is from a guy who had just come out of prison. His teeth were shot. You know, we ended up taking out all of his teeth and giving him dentures, new teeth, a smile. He could get a job again. He could be confident again about being in public. And, you know, when we first met him, we knew that he told us that he had just come out of prison and why he had been in there and how long, and that he hadn't taken care of himself or his teeth. And so, you know, we took care of him the best we could to the best of our abilities. And then he left this review that he wrote. And it was interesting because most people who go to the dentist, they'll write a review like, oh, I really like my smile, or, you know, the injection didn't hurt, or whatever it is, you know. But he wrote this, and this is still the most important review to me ever. He said, go see these people. They will not judge you. And I thought that was just, I mean, that just means a lot to me, right? So when it comes to building a great team, you have to set a mission. You have to be part of something that is bigger than yourself. I have seen collaboration go completely south, even with good people, when the point of you coming together is not a noble one. It is not an aspirational one. It is not one about making a difference, because all of us have discretionary effort and energy to spend. And we're not going to spend it on something that doesn't have meaning to us. So when you're a leader of a group of people, or you are part of a team that is being led by somebody else, it is really, really critical that the point of all this is at the top. And this is why Mayo and MIT are different. Okay? Mayo Clinic has this simple line, the needs of the patient come first. And they live and breathe this line better than any place I've been to. And they do it on a huge scale. You know, 2,000 to 3,000 doctors, 50,000 employees. Are there politics there? You bet. Are there egos there? You bet. But most of those things become subservient at the end of the day to what's in the best interest of the patient. And MIT is the same way. When you graduate from MIT, they don't tell you, they tell you this line, which is a blessing and a curse. They say, your job is not to go out there and solve the world's problems. Your job is to go out there and solve the world's biggest problems. Yeah, so you know, they just sort of set this bar that can be daunting, but also incredibly motivating, right? And that's your job. Is the power of collaboration isn't about the nuts and bolts of creating a team that collaborates. It is about why you're getting together. It's not the how or the what. That all comes later. If you don't have a really powerful why, who cares? So this quadrant, I'd like you to think about, which is a way of organizing your thoughts on what are you going to spend your life on. A friend of mine had this quote. She said, I don't fear failure, but I do fear regret. Who wants to live their life and get to the end of their life and say, I wasted it, you know, I sacrificed the gift, as it were, from the previous quote. So one of the ways that you can reduce the chances of you getting to the end of your life and having those regrets that you wasted it, A, is to do stuff, because almost everybody the stuff that people regret is the stuff they didn't do. It's not the stuff they did do. Okay? So that's the first thing to remember. But the second thing is to be fairly ruthless with this. You only have so many days and minutes left. You don't know how many they are. Spend them on something that matters, right? So Dwight Eisenhower once said, what is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. And Stephen Covey took that and he put this in this 2x2 plot that is sometimes referred to as the Eisenhower matrix. And things are either important or urgent. So if you're on the bottom right-hand quadrant here, if you're working on stuff that is not important and not urgent, get rid of it. It's not going to matter. If you do it or don't do it, it's not going to make a difference. And there's a ruthlessness to that, right? On the bottom left-hand quadrant, if it's urgent and it's not important, delegate it. Okay, give the responsibility away, but don't micromanage the person to whom you give it. You truly give it away. Okay? People want autonomy. If you're on the top right-hand quadrant, this is where you want to spend most of your life, especially as a leader, because this is where you can reflect, plan, come up with your strategies that are about things that are important. These are your long-term goals. Top left-hand quadrant, they're urgent and important. These tend to be critical activities, things you have to deal with now. but you want to try and spend as few minutes of your life on crisis as you do anything else, right? So what I have found is that I'm fairly ruthless with what I work on. Things have to matter, or the people have to matter. So, someone will say to me, like my mother says, "What are you doing this weekend?" I said, "Well, tomorrow morning I have a webinar to give to people all over the world, but many of them are in Africa." And she says, "Oh, when are you going to do that?" And I go, "Well, because of the timing, Mum, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. So I'm going to go into work where I have the best internet connection." And she goes, "Oh, what time are you going to have to get up?" I go, "Mum, it doesn't matter what time I have to get up. The person who asked me to do this, I have tremendous admiration for, and I want to do this." So for me, that was a green element. Uvoh, that's you, in case you haven't figured that out, all right? But it's green. Now, if somebody else had asked, in my mind, it might have been pink. I might have. And so what you need to do is to develop really, really good, nice, kind ways of saying no to people that are graceful and gracious, okay? And actually think about it. Think about the words you're going to come up with to say, "No, I don't want to do that." So Uvoh, in terms of time, I think I'm going to just...
You're good. You're good with time. I
right.
was told you have 1 hour, so.
All right. Well, I'll go 4 or 5 more minutes, and then we can stop and take questions, right?
Okay.
Adam Grant wrote a book called Give and Take, and he basically says there's 3 kinds of people in the world, and givers, matchers, and takers. And I'm going to pick somebody who I can see here. I can see Henrietta is listening in and watching. Okay, so Henrietta, I'm going to pick you. Let's say I meet Henrietta, and I just go up to her and I give her $100, and I say, "Hey, Henrietta, here's $100. I just feel like doing something nice for you. Go spend this, do something good with it, have fun with it, whatever." That makes me a giver. Now, Henrietta, she didn't ask for this, but if she accepts that $100 and says, "Sri, thank you very much for giving me the $100. That's awfully nice of you," and she turns and walks away with no interest in reciprocating, she's a taker in this model. If she walks away and thinks, "Well, that was really nice of Sri, but I'd like to do something for him," and in her mind, she's the kind of person that when she thinks about reciprocating, consciously or subconsciously, what she does in return is worth about $100 too. If she's one of those people that sort of calculates that, then she's a matcher. Okay? Now, if she reciprocates and there's no limits, she could give something back that's worth way more than $100, and she doesn't even think about that, then she's a giver as well. All right? So within that general context of who's a giver, who's a matcher, and a taker, Grant asks this question: who loses in life, in the business world? Is it a giver, a matcher, or a taker? And normally, if I'm in a room with the classroom, I have you stick up your hands and say, who thinks it's giver, who thinks it's matcher? And it turns out that givers lose. And most people in the room, when I give them this statistic, their head just sort of drops, because they're just dying that it's those darn takers that lose, right? But it's not, it's the givers that lose. So that sort of upsets them. So then I ask the next question, well, who wins in life? Who wins in the business world? And this is the answer that surprises them. The answer that surprises them is that givers are actually winners. So if you want to buy this book, Give and Take, it will describe that there are ways where you can be very giving that can help you and drive success for you. And there are ways where if you give, you get used, abused, and trodden on, you lose. Okay? So you don't have to be a jerk to get ahead. You can be a good person. You can be a very giving, compassionate, kind person and still get ahead. So I'll give you one example, for example. So I don't care about a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff isn't that important to me, especially money. And so I'm not the best negotiator. And there are times when I have negotiated for something and then afterwards sort of said, I probably should have negotiated a bit harder there. I kind of gave some stuff away. And at the time, I was quite happy giving it away, almost proud of myself. But then afterwards, I kind of regretted it. And so one of the tactics that Grant gives you is to say, if you think you're that kind of person, never, ever go into the negotiation as if you're negotiating for yourself. think about someone who really matters to you and negotiate as if you are an agent for them. And it is amazing how it changes your mindset. So now I negotiate as if I'm negotiating for my wife, okay, or my family, whatever it is. I have something now where I say, you know, I don't want my wife to come out on the short end of the stick. I want to take care of her. I want to protect her. And suddenly I feel this backbone and this steel that I wouldn't have otherwise if it was just for me. So again, there's one tactic, right, that you can use. Uvoh, I'm going to stop there, okay, and see if there are questions, and then come back to more slides only if we have time. How about that? Is that all right?
Can you please go back to the sweet spot, because the sweet spot slides again?
How far back? This one?
Yeah. Yeah, the beginning of one. How do you stretch? You know, how do you stretch? Because there's a tendency, somebody's asking, you know, I think I don't have enough energy, and I think, you know, I wasted a lot of time. I didn't make my decisions time. How do I really need to know how to stretch, how to gain, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, do I have some regrets that I didn't think about this stuff sooner? Yeah, but I can't change the past. I mean, Roy Bennett has a quote: "The past is a place of reference, not a place of residence." Okay, so you can learn from it, but you know, you're already wiser. You're already closer to your sweet spot if you're asking the question, right? So that's good. So I found that it's about doing new things, and it's about doing big new things, and not being afraid to do those things. Even when people look at you and say, "But your life is so good, why would you change it?" Well, you're changing it because you want to be the best you can be and make the biggest difference you can. And to do that, you may need to learn new skills, meet new people, have new capabilities. So you can't change the past, right? I mean, that's done, but you can learn from it and say, okay, that's what I did before, but now I'm going to accelerate and go do new things and give myself the freedom to do that. You know, I have dental students who say to me as they're getting close to graduating, "What shall I do when I graduate?" And I say, well, my advice to you is take the first 10, 15 years after you finish college doing 3 or 4 different things in dentistry, very different things, and get good at them. You know, don't just do them for like 2 months. Do them for 3 or 4 years, get good at them. And you might say, well, what is that in dentistry? Well, some people might go work in a community clinic. Some may work in a private practice. Some may go do some research. Some may further their education by doing a degree in a specialty or in public health, whatever it is. Some may go into education and be a teacher of dentistry, right? So there's different ways within dentistry where you can do different things that require different skills of you and bring you into contact with different kinds of people who are needing different things because you want to serve them. And then after 15 years, after whatever that time is, then you'll find out which of these things really matter to me and really turn me on. Because there isn't a connection between your energy level and whether you're engaged in what you're doing. And, you know, I find that yeah, I'm getting older. Like I said, I'm 54, and there are days when I'm petering out a bit quicker, or it's a bit harder to get up in the morning. But when I'm working on something that matters to me, it feels like that energy bank is a lot fuller. And that's back to that Eisenhower matrix, right? When I'm working on something that to me is in the green areas, that brings me energy. If I'm working on the stuff in the pink areas, I don't want to do that, you know. So I think it is about tying these circles together, and you'll find that you'll get your energy back.
All right, thank you. If you do have any questions, please unmute yourself and ask your questions, or you can raise your hand. I'm going to call Henrietta. Are you there?
That's the problem with being on one of these with Uvoh. If he sees your name, he's just call on you, you know. It's a risk.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
All right. All right, thank you, Henrietta. Go ahead. I know you are involved in a lot of projects. You're involved in a lot of lifting of people, in sharing of wisdom. You know, I mean, just listening to what, you know, what Dr. Sri just said, how do you think, do you have any questions, or do you have any areas, or if something come up to you?
Most of this information actually just rushed into me, especially when he talked about the wisdom and the energy thing. And I'm like, okay, is there somewhere I've missed it along the line? Because I was having a discussion with a friend recently. I'm like, there's this thing I would like to do, but I don't think I have the energy for it anymore. The time I had the energy, I should have done it, but I don't think I have that much energy anymore. So when he mentioned that, it rushed into me. It's not like I have the question per se, and then somebody just asked the question out of the blue to say, what if I didn't do? So I got that information to say, well, you could still find a way around it. But my own question out of that is, you know, when the wiser you get, or would I say the older you get, there are things you would want to delve into. There are more things you would like to do. Reach out to more people, maybe not just for financial gain, maybe things for community and all that. And then you find out that you don't have as much energy to pursue as you would have a few years back, but you have this passion for this particular thing. What do you suggest? How do you think we can balance this wisdom and the energy you have? Do you recruit? Do you, because it's your passion, how do you get somebody else to buy into your passion because the person has that energy?
Great question. I thought you were going to ask, when do I get my $100? So I'm glad you didn't ask that question. Thank you for the question. So I think that there are different ways of using your wisdom. So I'll use an example that at MIT, I chair this alumni board, and we surveyed all of our business school alumni. And we asked them, what's your interest level in engaging with the school and with other alumni? And what we saw was this bimodal response, where when people were just graduated and they had lots and lots of energy, but they didn't have much wisdom, they wanted to engage with the school and with the alumni because they wanted to get their careers going and use that network and that knowledge, right? And then the interest just plummeted because people were now getting their careers going, they were raising children, they just didn't have the time or the energy, right? And then they got to later in their careers, and then they wanted to be engaged again. So if you feel like you're at that point in life where you have less energy, even though you have more wisdom, then you can play the perfect role of being a mentor, right? And guiding other people that do have the energy but don't have the wisdom. Because remember that when someone comes to me, a lot of times for advice, they're not coming to me to teach them a technical skill. They're coming to me to say, what do you think I should do next? Or should I go down this path, or should I go? That ability to shape the future through your wisdom doesn't necessarily require physical energy. It requires you to be mentally engaged, right? But it doesn't require you to be physically as active, because now it's a case of passing on your wisdom. So again, you're leveraging what you know. You're helping others get to their sweet spot quicker by passing on what you know. So I would not think of it as a bad thing that you don't have as much energy as you used to. It's actually natural, right? But now you have to focus even more on, okay, if this is the energy I have, what am I going to do with it? How am I going to really make it count? Because I don't have as much as I used to. So again, I'm pretty ruthless with who I mentor, to be honest, Henrietta, because I have people that come to me and say, will you be my mentor? And I'm like, sure, I'm happy to do that. Thank you for the gift of thinking that I can help you. But the ones that drive me crazy are the ones who say they want to be mentored and then take none of the advice that I give them. They're not teachable, right? Okay. And I move on from them pretty quickly. There's a young lady in South Africa right now, in Pretoria, okay, a dentist. She has a drive to make a difference. She can change the world, all right? But she's teachable, and she wants to learn. And it's a joy for me, to work with her. Tomorrow morning, I have a Zoom call with her, because for her career and what she wants to do, we're going to try and help her, right? Then I've got other people who they'll say, well, oh, thank you for that great advice. I'm going to work on that, and let's meet again in a month. And you meet them again in a month, and they've done nothing. And, you know, you say, okay, well, am I spending my remaining days usefully here with, you know, maybe they just moved from green to pink, you know? So you find a nice way of saying, I'm moving on. You know, someone like the lady from South Africa, I'm reaching out to her. There's constant engagement. If somebody sort of just is not teachable, I don't really push the engagement, you know? There's no point. I'm not going to do anything with it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Henrietta. You are awesome. You know, on the spot, awesome. That's good. Yeah. I wanted to find out. You know, actually, I know they're not coming up, but I want to say, how can we're small in terms of our country. We are a group of people in Nigeria, and I think we can, as an association, make a difference where we are with what we do. How do you think we can come together? We are in different parts of the world, but we have a common, you know, lineage. Sort of, we were in the same school, and we are still together after many years. How can we make a difference in our country?
So you just answered the first question about where you want to make a difference, right? So that's good. The second question is, the fact that you have people all over the world is a good thing. You know, that should be a broader network of resources on which to rely or engage, with which to engage to make the difference you want to make. But the question is, what is the difference you want to make as a group? And, you know, so what's the why? Okay. Once you figured out the why, well, then everything else flows from that, the how and the what and the marshalling and the aligning of resources and people. But can you find a why that inspires, that has meaning, that is noble, that is bigger than yourselves as individuals, where you want to make a contribution and do some good, right? So that's the first question, is the why. If you can't come to a consensus on why, whatever you do is going to be probably superficial. So that's your first question.
Okay. Okay. Azubike Agboifo, are you there?
Yes, Senior Prefect, I'm here.
You know, Sri, a little background for this guy. This guy found a why, and I saw him traveling. I don't know if you went to Afghanistan. You had a why. There's a strong commitment. There's a lot of pride and patriotism in serving. I mean, he still has it on his face cap. You can see it there. You know, there's some pride. How do we bring that? You know, Zubi, you know, go ahead. What do you think is the difference between where we are and how we can, you know, in terms of that pride is not where, you know, from our country. I don't see that pride.
Well, I think Dr. Sri hit the nail on the head by saying that the why actually comes from your passion. And I mean, a lot of you guys call me Sergeant A, which, you know, actually goes back to our days in high school. That was the nickname. And everyone knew I wanted to be in the military. I did everything possible to be in the military because there was a passion for it. It started out as a passion for the uniform, but eventually metamorphosed into a passion for service. And then having the opportunity to serve in the US Air Force, I even found more reasons. I found more whys in doing what we did in terms of, you know, deployments and, you know, serving the nation. But the key thing is that you have to find that undying reason why you want to do what you're doing. And some people in a business, the business sphere will call it purpose. You know, you might have vision, you might have mission, you might have the way you want to go about your vision and your mission. But the purpose is the thing that remains indelible. It remains from the beginning of the founding of that business to the end, if at all an end comes. So for us in DSE, THS, Old Students Association, I think we have actually started developing our why. And that is basically giving back to the community that, you know, kind of fed us and brought us to where we are. and brought us to this level of success to a very great extent. So if we start our why from where we started, developing and bringing good things to the environment where we all grew up and were nurtured, I think that's a good starting point. One thing I would state actually is that that why question is not something that can be answered in a day. I'll give you a good example. I was just in Lagos about a week ago, and we're in a strategy session trying to revitalize a dying financial institution. And trust me, it took us 3 days to answer why we want to do that. What is it that we want to bring? What is the value that we want to bring to society? What's the thing that's going to differentiate us? But why are we doing what we're doing? But it took us, out of a 5-day strategy session, it took us 3 days. We kept going back and forth. And that is the amount of time, that we need to put in to answer that question why. It's not just something you can answer in 1 day. We have to, start from somewhere and begin to build on it until we can find our purpose. I think that's the little contribution I can make to this.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sri, this was just a perfect example of what you said. As you were speaking of the why of why we do this and stretching out, as you became, is a perfect example of the sweet spot, being able to stretch. There are so many things, I've been with him for many years, things he wanted to do. He wanted to be a priest at some point, I still think he wants to be a priest. He has served in the military and he's still able to. So it's a perfect example of, I think we need to catch up with him later and use him, and just talk about his life is a perfect example of, stretching of the sweet spot. But I wanted to ask you, Sri, after that little break, how do you build patriotism in countrymen?
Oh, that's a really loaded question. And I will tell you why, in my opinion. This is just my philosophy. I haven't read this anywhere. There is a lady called Priya Parker who wrote a book on the art of gathering, where it's actually a book that says, anytime you have a meeting of people, everything about it can be controlled, can be shaped to make that meeting successful. Whether it's a dinner party for 4 people or a meeting for 10,000 at a conference center, there are things that you do that. So for example, she said, there's research that says how much space people want to be in. So I don't know about you guys, but it's so common that if you have a dinner party, everyone ends up in the kitchen, right? Why does everybody end up in the kitchen? She argues that it's because you might have your living room or your family room all set up for the guests, but the first 2 or 3 guests that come, they don't want to be in this big room on their own. Okay, the space is too big for the number of people. So they come to the kitchen because that's where the other people are and it's cozy. And then it just keeps going. So for example, so you have to kind of craft stuff. But in her book, she says this line, she says, it is a border that makes a nation. And one of the challenges that we have as humans is that as soon as we're born, the first thing that identifies us may be our gender. People want to know, is it a boy or a girl, right? But the second thing that immediately gets assigned to you is your nationality. And I'm going to argue that there have been just as many bad things done on our planet in the name of patriotism.
I'm sure you're on mute.
There we go. So I'm always hesitant to embrace the concept of patriotism if it is blind loyalty, right? If it's not loyalty in the concept of actually doing good as you represent your country, rather than doing harm. And man is tribal. Man likes to be around people. We like to be around people just like us. So wherever we find uniformity or reasons to feel like we belong, we love it. And one of the best ways to feel like you belong is to say, well, I'm an Englishman, or I'm an Indian, or I'm an African, or I'm Nigerian, or I'm American, right? Whatever it is, there's a certain sense of identity that comes with that too. And if we do good things with that identity and that community, that's great. But we've also done a lot of bad things. So You pushed a button there when you asked a patriotism question, I'm afraid. So, you know, when people feel like they're in the minority, any kind of coming together as a group can really lead to good things, because it can lead to you kind of coalescing your energies and having a why, maybe. You know, maybe the why is, well, I'm doing this for my country. But that cannot supersede whether or not you're doing a good thing to begin with. I mean, think of how many wars are fought over nation because of countries, right?
You're right. Anyway, I do have one question here. I have two questions here. I think with that we'll be done. It says, how do you have the courage to aim for the big why? And is there no service in helping and fixing?
All right, let's do the first one first. So how do I have the courage? Oh, well, I'm totally motivated by the I don't fear failure, I fear regret line. I want to choose the path of least regret. I want to get to the end of my life and say, I didn't waste it. And I would regret not going for the big why. I mean, that is very motivating for me on one level. On the other level is, it's back to that MIT line. You know, your job is to go out there and solve the world's biggest problems. It's the big whys. And that frightens me a little bit. What happens if I fail? But I would rather go down trying on a big why than not try. Then the second question is fixing and helping, not a way of service. So yeah, I mean, this is where we can get into the semantics of the words, right? But so I get where the question's coming from, and I think that's how I used to feel. You know, if when you're fixing or when you're helping, you are doing it by that paper's argument, if you're doing it at the same level, as long as you don't see the other person as somehow inferior to you, then yes, it's serving. But if you see them as inferior to you, or you're superior, you're better off than they are, then the argument would be that it's not true service, okay? Because you're not, it's not at the same level. So that's the argument of that paper. So yeah, a lot of times I bring these things up just because they kind of spark a conversation and ask us to kind of stop and think about things a little bit differently. But I did like that paper.
All right, thank you, Sri.
Austin was waving his hand. Austin, did you have a question, or were you just saying goodbye?
Austin had asked a question about the big why.
Okay.
Austin, go ahead.
No,
Austin, if you have
no, that was the question I had. I thought you had not seen it. Yeah, that courage thing, because most times
yes,
we kind of limit our thoughts to say, oh, maybe we shouldn't go there, we cannot achieve it. You want to do something, but you are self-limiting, kind of. So, but I think, like you said, it's better you go down trying to solve the big why than don't try at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, life is short, right? Make it count.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Sri. This has been, every time we listen to these talks, there's something to think about, something to motivate yourself about, and something new to do. Myself and Shuri are talking about a podcast where we're going to inspire minds and change our world where, as much as we can. So it's like, at this point in your life, we're thinking about a new project, and we'll continue to do it. Well, thank you so much, Shri, for waking up at 5 to be on a podcast, on a webinar to a group of people you've never seen before. But it's been a privilege. It's been a joy to have you. And thank you, everyone, for showing up. Those on Facebook, on all my old friends, and I halo. Shri, we speak pidgin English in Nigeria as well, and it's it's something you need to learn. Shri is gonna come to Nigeria one of these days because we have so much to do there, and hoping it will get you some pepper soup, some goat meats. Azubike is called Isiewu. Anyway, the slides of this presentation are going to be available on the website, so Joshua will be able to upload it. And more questions after now, please don't hesitate. you can send it to us. We can get it across to Sri, and he can bring the answers for us. Thank you so much, Sri. Thank you very much.
It was my pleasure, and thanks everyone for showing up and being so interested. It's a big gift you give me, so thank you. Thank you.
Okay, well, I just want to say a big thank you to him.
Go ahead.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Sreenivas Koka, thank you very much for the opportunity coming here today online to make this wonderful presentation to us. I remember when the night I discussed with Uvoh and he mentioned your name, the first thing he sent me was a link about you. And after going through your presentation, I said, yes, this is the man. So thank you very much. I really appreciate on behalf of THSOSA National and all the members of THSOSA. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation.
Thank you. You're very kind.
All right. All right. All right. See you guys. I guess we'll be back tomorrow. I think it continues tonight at 5 p.m. and tomorrow we're going to talk about several other topics. Sri, I'm just going to jump on your presentation and talk about a work-life balance. I think, because you said something about, I'm just a little intro into tomorrow's talk. He mentioned something that I'm just going to copy. You said when you're doing something that you are interested in, you have a lot of energy, so in terms of, you're making your life count, when you are doing something that truly matters to you, I don't feel weak. I feel energized. So, you just to find a why. If you find a why, I think, I think that would be the big question. It has taken us many years to find it, and it's never too late to find your why. Guys, thank you so much. Sri, let me allow you go, and we'll be back with Dr. Janobli in 1 hour.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.